Hi everyone, welcome to New Bee. I saw a post recently where someone was asking why their stitch kept flipping back. This is a common problem for newbie tatters, so here is an explanation which I hope you'll find helpful. I'm going to work a chain so I can use two colours, but the principle is exactly the same for rings. I will show a little bit of the hand setup today, but I'm not going into huge detail. I'll leave a video link which goes through those steps for anyone who needs it. Flipping your stitch and keeping it flipped is all about tension and how our tension changes between our two threads. No doubt you've come across videos where the tatters are flying along. Shuttles move so quickly that everything blurs into a single motion. So yes, that can be impressive, but the first thing I want to say is that tatting is not about speed. Tatting is about rhythm and consistency, and most importantly, it's about enjoying the process. For us to find those three things, we need to understand tension. To understand tension, we need to slow everything right down and go back to the mechanics of the stitch. So today we're going to work a few stitches by breaking every movement down into individual steps. We don't start the next step until the previous step is completed. Once we know where and when our tension is required, and more importantly, how to change it, we'll blend all the steps back together to give us that single fluid motion. Okay, so I've mentioned the T word a few times already. I feel like I should apologise in advance because there's going to be a few more to come. Everything comes down to tension, and I'm not just talking about the tension in our stitch. The importance of tension begins in our hand setup. Something I see all the time is newbies struggling to work with loose thread. Loose thread just makes everything difficult because you don't have as much control as you do if the thread is taut. And more often than not, loose thread means a lot of thread. More is not better. More is just more difficult. If your working thread is loose, it's going to drag as you try to pass your shuttle under it. Because the thread has dragged and your fingers only reach so far, a lot of newbies then let go of the shuttle, which means they lose their loop. When your working thread is kept taut, it passes very easily between the shuttle and your finger, as well as the shuttle and your thumb. You don't have to let go of the shuttle, which means you don't lose control and you don't lose your loop. Let's look at setting up our hand. We're making a chain, so our working thread is on top, the core thread is on the bottom. The easiest way to set your hand up is to hold the knot, or in this case, our previous stitches, in the pinch. Splay your fingers, then bring the thread over to wrap your pinky. You can wrap your hand with your fingers down, but I see a lot of newbies lose their thread because they've wrapped their hand too tightly. They haven't got enough room to work here, and they haven't anchored their pinky properly. So when they stretch out their hand to be able to work, they lose the lot. Splaying your fingers as you wrap gives you the perfect distance between the pinch and your tensioning finger. Because this finger is already in position, we now have the perfect tension as well as room to work. I want you to note the length of the thread I have here. If we measure that, the distance between the pinch and my tensioning finger is about 6 centimeters. Let's call it 2.5 inches. My core thread, measured from the pinch to my shuttle, is about 16, 17 centimeters. Let's say 6.5 inches. Now, I'm giving you these measurements only as a guide. What works for me isn't necessarily going to be comfortable for you. You'll need to play with it, but my point is have enough distance here so you have room to work, and keep your shuttle thread reasonably short so it's manageable. The longer your thread is from the pinch to the shuttle, the less control you have and the more you'll struggle to make your stitches. We do need some length in our shuttle so we can create the loop for the shuttle to pass through, but we don't have to wrap our whole hand. We can wrap one finger if we want to, as long as we're getting that loop. The last thing I want you to see is that my thread makes an L shape. I use the L shape to teach because it's something my students can visualize. It gives them a map for where their right hand needs to go. If I just tell them to pull their hand out to the right, I get shuttles being waved up and down and all over the place. I'm going to say more about that a little later, but right now we're going to work the 4 steps to flip our stitch. Placing the knot in the pinch, we tension our working thread as we place on our left hand. Complete the L shape with our short core thread. Keep the working thread taut as we place our stitch. At the end of step 1, my working thread is tensioned, my core thread is loose, and we have a green loop on blue thread. Drop the middle finger of your left hand to release the tension in the working thread and keep it down. At the end of step 2, both the core thread and the working thread are loose. Now, step 3 is where a lot of people mess up. We're about to move our right hand, and for some reason, when I tell people to move their right hand, their left hand automatically follows, which then results in a tug of war between the hands. That's also something we'll look at a little later. To successfully complete step 3, we need to keep our left hand down. Do not move your left hand. Create the base of the letter L by moving your right hand out horizontally. Our stitch has flipped. At the end of step 3, our working thread is loose, our core thread has tension, and we now have a blue loop on green thread. Step 4 determines whether your stitch flips back or not. The trick to step 4 is to keep tension on your core thread. So with the core thread taut, we can raise the middle finger of our left hand, reintroducing tension into the working thread, which pulls the stitch up and completes our L shape. Repeat those steps for the second half of the stitch. Place your stitch on the tensioned working thread. Working thread is tight, core thread is loose. Change the tension by dropping your middle finger of your left hand. Keep it down. Both our threads are now relaxed. Keeping the left hand down, tension the core with your right, which flips our stitch. We have the base of our L shape. The working thread is loose, core thread is tight. Maintaining tension on the core, we can retension our working thread. Once you're comfortable with the steps, you can start to slowly blend them together. But notice I always have my L shape, no matter how slowly or how quickly I tat. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that I use the L shape to teach because it helps students know where their right hand needs to go. I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit. Your stitch will flip anywhere along this length, provided the working thread is loose enough. That brings me to the tug of war I mentioned earlier. A lot of new tatters place their stitch, then take their shuttle straight up and are thrilled when their stitch flips. But the excitement is short-lived, because when they try to retension their working thread, we have a little bit of a problem. There are two reasons the threads are fighting against each other. Firstly, both threads have tension applied to them, which we need to do if we're to pull our stitch up. But at the moment we have a bad combination of tension on both threads and height in our core thread. The winner is going to be the thread with the most tension. I can flip my stitch back and forth simply by relaxing one thread more than the other. This is the main issue for a lot of new tatters. They don't realise that while they're struggling with tension on both threads, one is relaxed just enough to make the other flip. By tensioning our core thread in the same direction as the base of the letter L, so by pulling it straight out horizontally, our stitch flips and is then able to glide easily along the core thread instead of fighting with the core. So take your time, break each stitch down into steps, and be mindful of your tension. I hope that helps. See you next time.